Automobiles have always been one of the fastest growing commodities since its creation in the mid-1900s. These days, it's not even uncommon for all households to have at least one car. Unfortunately, they're not always safe enough to be driven. If you're wondering about the most dangerous cars out there, here's a detailed video on the 10 most dangerous cars ever built. Make sure to stick around because each one of these cars has its own unique reasons why it is extremely dangerous. Maybe even one of your own cars might be on this video. Let's get into the video. Ford Pinto. Perhaps the most infamously dangerous American car to this day, the Ford Pinto is a prime example of an under-designed car rushed to the market. The Pinto was manufactured throughout the 70s as an answer to the surge of the Japanese and European imports. At the time, smaller vehicles like Pinto were popular in the market. It also helps that this car requires less fuel than many other cars. Unfortunately, there are significant design flaws that led to its recall in 1978. The first one was that the transmission was prone to moving into gear without the driver knowing. But perhaps the most well-known problem is its tendency to burst into flames upon a slight rear impact. Since the fuel tank of the vehicle is located near the bumper, the probability of an explosion from one hit from the back is extremely high. As more people got killed from the car's inadequately protected gas mask, it drew a lot of public attention to car safety. Yugo GV. The only possible benefit for purchasing this car in the 80s was its low price tag. The GV, which stands for Great Value, was billed as America's cheapest new car, but what came along with the low cost was a vehicle that matched the price tag. There was no specific problem with the car that led to any particular flurry of accidents. Instead, the overall cheap materials and the overall poor design made it too dangerous to drive in general. As the Yugo GV offers no protection in a frontal crash, has very few built-in safety devices, and has an engine that rattled and eventually crumbled apart, drivers are likely to become seriously injured if they were ever involved in a crash with this car. In addition to its shortcomings in safety, around 126,000 Yugo GVs were recalled after their carburetor fuel failed to meet air pollution standards. Chevrolet Corvair. A car featured in Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, the Chevrolet Corvair has a long-standing reputation in the history of vehicles. The Corvair was created by Chevrolet to compete with car brands like Porsche. Its extremely unique design, such as an air-cooled and rear-mounted engine, can make it stand out from the rest. However, most drivers were not prepared for the different driving style it requires. The Corvair had a reputation for being reckless as no anti-roll bar had been added to the front of the vehicle, while the steering column could be easily pushed towards the driver upon impact. Its rear-mounted engine was also said to sometimes release toxic fumes into the car's cabin. In addition to the dangers, the negative press received from Nader led to the discontinuing of the Corvair in 1969. Ford Bronco 2. When the market was clamoring for a compact SUV, Ford's answer was to create Bronco 2. This car was designed to be both agile and rugged. In spite of its popularity, it was also regrettably chronic with rollovers. Ford might have made a little mistake with this SUV. Its high body made maneuvering curved roads a dangerous thing. A tight turn at high speeds is believed to be directly responsible for a large number of deaths. Ford Explorer. Some of you guys may have this car right now, but don't worry, it's not the same Ford Explorer that you have. This is an older model. The Ford Explorer was built similarly to the Bronco 2, but larger. The 1990 Explorer was top-heavy and built on a truck chassis that was never designed for the weight and dimensions of a medium-sized SUV. But despite the rollover issue, the Ford did not go back to the drawing board, and the problem still persisted. Even when some changes have been made in an attempt to ensure that it would not roll over frequently, the core issues of the body design were ignored, which only opened the door for even more chronic issues. Besides facing many of the same issues that plagued the earlier Bronco 2, further accidents were caused by the low pressure on their tires that led to tires losing their tread and causing crashes through a loss of grip. Dozens of people died in these cars throughout the 1990s. Thankfully, 2 decades later, Ford seems to have bucked the trend. Pontiac Fiero. As a two-seater, the Pontiac Fiero served the needs of many car buyers who were looking for smaller and more efficient cars. In all due fairness, this vehicle had one of the most highest safety ratings from crash tests. However, it still developed an infamous reputation for being unsafe. This happened because of its tendency to burst into flames without warning. Fires could start for several reasons. Among them were the faulty wiring that resulted from poor design choices and its coolant features. Coolant lines that were located in unsuitable places in the engine and incorrect guidance on how much oil to put in the car caused chronic underfilling and oil leakage. This is where those fires commonly started. While the Fiero was only sold from 1983 to 1988, it still managed to cause serious havoc. It led 260 reported cases of the engine bursting to flames. Luckily, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, only received 6 reports for injuries. DeLorean DM-12. The DeLorean is a distinct design in the history of American cars. It became best known for its appearance in the Back to the Future films, but it also built a huge reputation for being an incredibly dangerous vehicle. The design feature that made this vehicle unique became the cause of its major safety issue. Its notable wing doors lacked the safety mechanics to release the doors after a crash, which meant that this would put the drivers in a dangerous position. These doors would be jammed, which would make it impossible to open from the inside. Also, the windows weren't large enough to offer a passageway to safety either. In the event of a rollover, passengers would be trapped inside until the rescue crews arrived in the scene. It may have been an iconic car once, but it's solidified in the list of the most dangerous cars of all time. Audi 5000. In most people's minds, Audis are paragons of safety and refinement. In the 80s, however, the Audi 500 caused a huge reputation problem for the German car manufacturer. This vehicle had a notably faulty engine. Apparently, the defective nature of the car that sent many drivers to their early graves came from the engine. The engine had a tendency to unpredictably accelerate and heave forward on its own even while in idle. It happened even worse when the drivers were driving on an average speed on the highway. The transmission tantrums may surprise and shock drivers into panicking and accidentally pressing the accelerator. The company addressed this issue by arguing that the engine was not faulty enough to cause any more crashes on the road by itself, but finally owned up later on. Unfortunately, a lot of drivers perished in accidents before it happened. Kia Rio. The smallest and cheapest cars money can buy, the Kia Rio hasn't always been the greatest when it comes to safety. This car is known to be one of the most dangerous vehicles in the US since the 21st century began. A car safety report by IIHS showed a couple of meek points for the Kia Rio's 2012 to 2014 model, including the head and leg areas that are susceptible to lethal damage when struck from the rear. The Kia Rio is a subcompact car produced by the South Korean manufacturer Kia Motors since November of 1999 and now in its 4th generation. Body styles have included a 3- and 5-door hatchback and 4-door sedan equipped with inline-4 gasoline and diesel engines and front-wheel drive. The Rio replaced the 1st generation Pride, a rebadged version of the Ford Festiva, and the Avella, a subcompact car sold as a Ford in some markets. A 2nd generation was introduced in 2005 in Europe and 2006 in North America, sharing its platform with the Hyundai Accent, a subcompact manufactured by its sister Hyundai Motor Company in South Korea. Chevrolet Corvette. The Chevrolet is a car that's been popular throughout history. This sports car attracts a young male demographic who likes speed. However, along with the car's power and aerodynamic design, the combination of aggressive drivers and narrow tires led to numerous car crash accidents even to these days. Even the most well-designed cars can get to an accident. The Chevrolet Corvette, colloquially known as the Vette, is a 2-door, 2-passenger sports car manufactured and marketed by Chevrolet across more than 60 years of production and 8 design generations. From 1953 to 2019, it was front-engine, and from 2020, it is mid-engined. With its generations noted sequentially from C1 all the way to C8, the Corvette serves as Chevrolet's halo vehicle and is widely noted for its performance and distinctive plastic, either fiberglass or composite bodywork. Since it first got released, the Corvette has since become widely known as America's sports car. Automotive News said that after starring in the early 1960s television show Route 66, the Corvette became synonymous with freedom and adventure, ultimately becoming both the most successful concept car in history and the most popular sports car in history. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any more videos of cars on budget and much more. Check out the Cars on a Budget playlist in the video link down in the description. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.